At the end of the year of 2022, The Glass Onion was released on Netflix to a widely positive audience response and critical success. Rian Johnson's winding and turbulent mystery captivated audiences and was a welcome addition to his Knives Out movie collection. Much has already been said of how these two films have begun a resurgence into the whodunit mystery genre. The carefully written plot lines and hidden details make repeat viewings even more enjoyable than the first. But there is one point of Glass Onion that has not been so well received. The fact that Glass Onion takes place during the real-world pandemic. Although the masks and social distancing were conveniently written out within the first few scenes, the choice to set the film during the global pandemic was not well received. Many people seemed to not like how the movie so accurately reflected our real-world lives during the coronavirus outbreak, even if it was only for the first few minutes. I would argue that this kind of representation of a current event, while it is still so fresh in all our collective memories, is important to how the pandemic will be remembered in future generations. Looking back on movies that have been released during the pandemic, very few have mentioned the coronavirus, and the ones that have opt to use the global situation as the movie's plot rather than the movie's setting. This kind of writing not only bores the viewer because the story is limited in its scope, but because it ends up being an overly exaggerated rehashing of what is seen in the news and social media feeds. Glass Onion distinguishes itself by using the pandemic as a social scene setting. Upon the start of the movie, you not only know the rules that this world plays by, but the time frame and the restrictions the characters are limited by. You understand that everyone in the story has been stuck in their houses for months on end. Travel has been restricted, and differing viewpoints on COVID have blown up the online world. The scene revealing each of the characters and their mask choice carefully and subtly demonstrates their deeper character values and response to the pandemic. Benoit has a cloth mask that matches his outfit while complying with guidelines. Lionel, as the scientist, has a proper N95 mask snugly on his face. Claire wears a beige mask that is constantly falling down and only pulls it up when she's reminded that she's a known political figure. Birdie has on a wired face decoration that doesn't even qualify as a mask, while Duke and Whiskey don't even bother with masks at all. This brief scene where all the characters are together and having to follow social distancing guidelines tells the audience so much in a very short amount of time. This kind of first-hand experience on dealing with a worldwide event is important when trying to portray historical context in media. The small details of the world, like elbow bumps, obsession with homemade bread, and the sudden explosion of Among Us games, would be lost or misrepresented if the movie were made a mere 40 years from now. To see the lasting power of using a worldwide event as a setting and not as the primary plot, look no further than the classic 1942 film, Casablanca. Known globally by its highly quoted ending,
"He's looking at you, kid."
Iconic. This movie garnered critical success and has stood the test of time, but not for being a war movie. It uses the looming threat of World War II to set the stage for the real themes of love, sacrifice, and moral principles and allows them to play out. The war not only provides cultural context to what the characters are living through, but it also influences the characters' decisions throughout the film. The movie would look completely different if it were made today, because we'd be trying to represent a world we didn't live in and don't fully understand. The view and tone of the world we see while watching Casablanca is one of people who lived in the actual build-up to the war. This example is why it's important that movies like Glass Onion accurately represent how we as a generation went through the onset of the coronavirus. Without movies like Glass Onion, setting the story during the early onset of COVID, what would our generation's representation of the pandemic be to a future generation? Popular media is our letter to the future and gives context of how we lived and what the global conversation was at the time. That's why Glass Onion being set during the initial COVID lockdown is so much more important than you may realize upon first watch, and why I personally want more movies to utilize the pandemic as a setting for the stories they tell. This is an important part of our generational history, and we deserve to have our collective experience represented. Thank you to everyone who watched to the end, and drop a like and a comment down below if you agree, or let me know why you disagree with my views on the pandemic and Glass Onion. This is the start of my channel, and I hope you're willing to subscribe and join me on my YouTube journey. Thank you.